Hello, princesses, and welcome back to Not Fit for Print Beauty with me, Rebecca. We have some winners here today. This is really exciting. I have tallied all of the votes, and yes, I got a lot of votes this year, but it was really fun to tally. And we actually have the winners. Now, if you missed the original video that introduced this, every year at the very end of the year, I do a beauty awards according to you, the Not Fit for Print Beauty community, where you guys answer. This year it was 21 different questions about what all your favorites were this year, some taking in 2023 releases, and some just in general what you liked this year. And I have the results tallied, and they're interesting. They're really interesting. So I cannot wait to share it with you. I'm so happy to have you here. Don't forget that you can also follow me over on TikTok, Instagram, and on Threads. And let me take a moment, since it's towards the end of the year, and thank those of you who have subscribed. We're almost at 20,000. I would love to have you join us and click the subscribe button. And if you're interested in more, you can also join our wonderful membership. Information down below in the description bar, along with ways to give super thanks and give back to the channel. But really, any way that you're involved, I'm just absolutely thrilled to have you. It's been a wonderful year, and I'm looking ahead to 2024, but not until we review a little bit of 2023. And I tried to do something a little different this year. I'm going to give you this year's winner, along with sometimes runner-ups if it's pertinent. I'm then also going to give you my selection for each category, and then the 2022 last year's winner. Things change. I could have done 2022 and 2021. This is the third year I've run this contest. We're just going to do last year. But maybe next year I'll think about including even more. I don't know. All right, let's go through them one by one and talk about the winners as chosen by you. Our first question is, what brand did you feel the most excited about overall this year? You might not have bought it. You might not have bought anything from the brand, but if they were on Instagram, if someone talked about them on YouTube or TikTok, you were thrilled to see it. Last year in 2022, the winner was Lisa Eldridge, interestingly enough. And this year we had almost a tie, okay? The number two was so close to number one, I gave it to both. But the number two runner-up was Chanel, which was just a few votes away from the actual winner as chosen by you guys. Almost Chanel. You guys chose Natasha Denona. You thought gave the most excitement. Good for Natasha Denona. She did well last year. She almost won last year, but this time she definitely clearly won. And who do I think was the most exciting brand this year? I think Prada and Addiction Tokyo. I love Chanel too, though. That's my answer. The second question I asked out of 21, neutral eyeshadow palette that you were most interested in and drawn to this year. This was such a landslide this year. I will talk about what 2022 got, but this was such a landslide. For every one vote that any other neutral palette got, this palette got 20 votes. So for every 2 votes, it got 40. I mean, it was so miles ahead and so clear from the start. Of course, the neutral eyeshadow palette you were most drawn to was Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude. Interestingly enough, last year Natasha Denona won as well for neutral palette, so that's 2 years in a row. And for me, it was also the Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude. A lot of you guys asked me, do I need that if I have the Mario, Makeup by Mario Ethereal palette? Yeah, there's something about the Natasha Denona, I Need a Nude. That's one of her prettiest palettes ever released, and I would dare say one of the prettiest palettes existing on the market today in terms of neutral nude shades. It's beautiful. And there's something in it for everyone. So that is a big, but it won. It was such a landslide. There's not even any runners-up that were close. YSL, Stora Dolls, of course, but it wasn't even anywhere near to being close. So that was a big win for Natasha Denona. Now, at the end, by the way, stick around to the end. Once we finish question number 21, I'm going to tell you the overall winner this year. And by that, I mean by votes, not just by categories won, but by times they were mentioned by people. That will be interesting as well. Okay, and I have that for 2021 also. Colorful eyeshadow. Now, some of you skip this. A lot of you's like, I don't really wear the colorful stuff. Okay, fair enough. Last year, we really had a surprise win. Odin's Eye won last year, and I thought that was really exciting. This year, guess who won? Natasha Denona. You guys, a lot of you counted the Xenon, you counted all of her other, I kind of put it together, all of her other eyeshadow palettes, but in general, Natasha Denona won. Pat McGrath was right behind her, so a lot of you still wear motherships and stuff when you want to wear colorful shadows, but Natasha did win the category with Pat McGrath breathing down her neck. All right, the stupidest release of the year was Slam Dunk. This, again, won so handily. Let me just tell you some of the others that did well. Didn't win, but did well. Charlotte Disney, I agree, that was a stupid. Why did she do that? The Charlotte Tilbury Disney release, people didn't like. They thought that was stupid. Wheel of Fortune, Laura Geller, people thought was a little bit corny. Food collaborations. Anything with food. And you know, it's funny because if you were someone who put that, you're probably going to go, other people put that? Yeah. There's a lot of people who answered anything having to do with food they thought was ridiculous. I'm going to tell you who won in a moment, but let me just tell you, last year, the Fenty Makeup or Ketchup won. Do you remember that? That was last year. But this year, come on. You guys know, right? It was the ESUM lipstick. Shaped as, we don't need the algorithm to be catching me here, shaped as an anatomy, a part of the male body. Let's put it that way. Nobody wanted to be bringing that out of their handbag and applying that in public. So some people did. Obviously, it sold. And the interesting thing is, I heard the lipsticks are absolutely amazing. Just the case, you know, you got to be bold. And if you were bold and bought it, good for you. It's not something I would want to pull out of my bag. And I'm not a prude. I just am like, oh, you know. And then people say it went to charity, it was fine. It certainly was attention getting, but let me tell you, you guys thought it was stupid. It handily, I'm looking at the, it won. I could have stopped counting, let me tell you. Okay, most expensive but worth it brand this year. This is a brand you spent your money on, but you don't care. Take my money, totally worth it. I thought it was Suku. I really loved them. I hate spending the money, but I love those products, but that's not what won. Last year, it was still Pat McGrath. This year, Pat McGrath isn't on here as much anymore. It's interesting how things change, isn't it? This year, you guys said Chanel. You spent your money on Chanel, and it was always expensive, but you were not disappointed by Chanel. Chanel is represented a lot in this year, more than last year, much more. Okay, this is always a kind of a fun one. I hate to say that because that's kind of mean. Most expensive, but just totally not worth it. Most expensive, but not worth it. Last year, it was Pat McGrath. This year, there was one clear winner and two very close runner-ups. The runner-up was, again, Pat McGrath Labs and Tom Ford. Those were the runner-up. But the clear winner, for every one vote that others got, this one got 8 votes. The clear winner of the most expensive, but not worth it, is Chantecaille this year. People were just like, eh. And what did I think? I love them, but I just didn't think it was worth it ever. My answer is Clé de Peau. I was always like, this is a lot. This is $25 a shade of eyeshadow. It needs to like drive me around and like make me dinner, you know? If it could, it would be well worth it. Some pretty eyeshadow, but yeah. Most expensive single beauty or hair item purchase that you made this year. Last year, everyone said the Pat McGrath motherships. People were still buying those. I'm not seeing as much excitement about it this year, but you know, it's a timely thing. With me, it was that $200 Chanel lipstick. But you guys resoundingly said Dyson hair products, obviously. You know, it's expensive. So a lot of you guys bought the Airwrap or bought the Dyson hair straightener or Dyson. Dyson was expensive. So that obviously is going to win. Favorite matte lipstick. Now this is one that I might need to take out. Lisa P said to me, is that so popular matte lips this year? I think she has a good point. This might be one that I need to take off the map for next year. You guys can let me know. Last year you said Lisa Eldridge. This year you also said Lisa Eldridge. So Lisa Eldridge has won that category 2 years in a row. I'd say Prada. I really like the Prada. I thought that was a pretty, you know, I'm head over heels for that Prada collection. The 9th question was favorite mascara that you wore this year, brand only. Now that's tough. The reason I say brand only is if I say actual mascara, it's hard to get a winner because you're all over the map with all these little mascara releases. But when I say brand only, it does stack the deck for brands like Benefit that just make so many you know. So last year Lancome won, and I was suspicious last year because Lancome has so many great mascaras. This year Lancome won as well. However, I mean, and that's an obviosity. I mean, okay, Lancome makes a lot of great mascara, so it did win. But you know what came close to win? Not close enough to be runner-up, but pretty close, and hasn't ever gotten votes before, is the Thrive mascara. Thrive makes a tubing mascara that is fantastic. It doesn't build any sort of, it doesn't build up the lashes, but it makes them look really long and kind of thin and fluttery. It's a beautiful, beautiful tubing mascara, but if I've done videos and things on Thrive, they don't do well. Like, you guys don't appear to be interested in Thrive, but they appeared a lot in the favorite mascara this year, and that's the first mention they've ever gotten, and it mentioned a lot. So they've stepped up sales in Thrive. Interesting. Sometimes the runners-up are more interesting. Favorite bronzer? This is interesting. I said Surratt, but not a lot of people bought the Surratt, so again, the deck is stacked against them. Last year, Charlotte Tilbury bronzer. This year, Charlotte was on the list, but she didn't win. You know who handily won this? For every one time another brand was mentioned, this brand was mentioned 6 times. Gucci. I think Gucci won in 2021, but Gucci kind of did a little bit of a re-release on their bronzers, added some new shades, did some repackaging for the holidays, and reminded us all about how wonderful their bronzer. So you guys handily, Gucci won that category. The favorite makeup brush brand, this is crazy. So I say Sonia G. Last year it was a tie with Sonia G and BK Beauty. This year it's the real winner, but it's by 1 vote. So I don't know if we can count it, but the real winner is BK Beauty by 1 vote. Right behind, with 1 vote less each, was a tie with Sonia G and Rephr. How did Wayne do? Wayne did okay, but nobody could touch BK Beauty, Sonia G, and Rephr. Really. I'm seeing some Morphe is on here. A lot of you guys like the Chanel, Surratt. It Beauty always gets a lot of votes, but those 3 were way, way at the top. But BK Beauty did take it. They did legitimately win. I count more than once. Favorite independent brand, and I said not sold at Sephora and Ulta and Colt and Mecca. I wanted a true independent brand with a small team working together. Last year was a really fun one. Lethal won last year. I say Addiction Tokyo. You guys said for every 1 vote, this one got 2. You guys said Sydney Grace. And Sydney Grace didn't have any hugely remarkable releases this year, so that's, I think, really exciting. They worked so hard at Sydney Grace, so good for them. Glaminatrix got some votes. Victoria Beckham. I think Victoria Beckham actually is funded by some. I got to look that up. I don't know if she's actually. Lisa Eldridge got a lot. But Jones Road got a few and Nomad got a few, but definitely, very much so, Sydney Grace won, and they deserve it. Brand that you tried for the first time this year. So it doesn't necessarily mean a brand that was released this year, but a brand that you decided, okay, I give in. I'm going to try it. Last year was Hourglass. Funnily enough, both last year and this year, Hourglass doesn't, as much as everyone loves Hourglass, it's never, not never, that is a terrible use of the word. It is often not people's favorite. Like when Hourglass releases something, people go bonkers, but when you ask for people's favorites, it's very rarely on their list. But last year, Hourglass won that. I tried Suku for the first time this year. Now, I obviously also tried brands that were released this year, but, you know. What did you guys say? This is a great one. You know what you guys finally decided to try this year? Danessa Myricks. She's such a genius. Well deserved. If you haven't tried Danessa Myricks, I recommend you do. But most of you already that took that advice already, because she was clearly our winner. Number 14, beauty retailer that you enjoyed the most. This is a tough one because the deck is always stacked in favor of Sephora because they have every brand. This might be changing with Chanel, Dior, Hourglass, and now Charlotte Tilbury going to Ulta. This might change. So Sephora won, and Sephora won last year too. It's an obviosity. I mean, you know, in Britain, Colt won. In Australia, Mecca won. It's, you know, it's obvious. I said Chanel. I really love shopping at the Chanel beauty boutique that I have. Nordstrom got a lot of votes. Beautylish got a lot of votes. None of them won. Space NK got a lot of votes. But Sephora and Ulta, because US is the biggest market, Sephora won and Ulta was a close second. Okay, Let's continue on. The favorite blush. I say Chanel. Last year, you guys said Pat McGrath. This year, it was almost a tie. Chanel was a close runner-up, but didn't win. Do you know what your favorite blush was this year, you guys? I mean, definitely a winner. Gucci. Gucci. You guys loved the Gucci bronzer, and you loved the Gucci blush. So if you've been hesitating on trying that, let me tell you, your community is saying Gucci has it on lock with their blush and their bronzer. All right, number 16, a highlighter that you loved the most, brand only. I can't answer this one for me. I am guilty of grabbing whatever highlighter is laying around, liquid or powder. I'm not like a highlighter aficionado. I don't want it too bright. I don't want it to, I'll use eyeshadow sometimes. I'm not like hugely into, that would be one that if I were answering my own survey, I would skip. You know, I told you guys if you needed to skip it. Last year, you said the Chanel highlighter was the best, and guess what you said this year? Chanel. Chanel is really taking a lot of categories this year. A lot. All right, we are in the bottom half here. 17. 17 was which one and done eyeshadow. And I asked you not to give me one shade from a larger palette, but a single shadow. Last year, you loved the Charlotte Tilbury. Last year is when she'd released those pop shots, so that makes sense. I love anything single shadow by Surratt. But this year you guys tied. You had two, and one was obvious, one was interesting. This was a dead tie between Victoria Beckham Beauty and her lid lusters. That one makes total sense. But interestingly enough, any of the Chantecaille single shadows. And really, when you think about it, those single shadows from Chantecaille are always beautiful, but this is the first time they legitimately won. It was an absolute dead-on tie. Number 18, the most hyped big release this year, in your opinion. What did you just constantly see? Last year you said it was the Chanel tweed. Remember that tweed release was everywhere with the kind of tweed and the tweed case and the everything. You guys said 40 people to 1. You guys said for every 1 vote someone else got, this one got 40 votes. So every time somebody would say Haus Concealer, 40 people would say this. Every time somebody said the Chanel lipsticks, 40 people would say this. Anything Natasha Denona, whether it was the I Need a Nude or the Xenon, we have Natasha winning another category. Most hype, most anticipated, biggest deal release. You guys said was anything from Natasha Denona. She has another little mini coming out, doesn't she? That I don't know when you guys are going to see this video. I might have even reviewed it already. I'm saving this video. All right, lip gloss brand or product, not the shade, but the lip gloss brand that you loved the most. Last year, you said Pat McGrath. But Pat McGrath is not as present on the list this year, if you haven't noticed. But what did you say this year? Hands down. Hands down, by a country mile, was anything by Dior. Those glosses by Dior are well loved. I agree. So I'm going to say Dior, either for me, the Maximizer, or the regular gloss. But you guys said you love the Dior glosses. That just one. Okay, 2 more to go here. Brand that you made the most purchases from this year. I didn't ask this question last year. It's a new question. I thought it was kind of a fun one. For me, I would say Chanel. I think I bought the most from Chanel this year. And you guys, for every one time somebody said Lethal or Tom Ford, 13 people said this brand. For every one time somebody said Odin's Eye or Natasha Denona, 13 people said Chanel. Yep, there's another category that Chanel won. Another category. Chanel won the brand that you made the most purchases from. They're killing it over there. Now, this was my other new addition. I didn't ask this one in 2022. This is a brand or retailer that you felt betrayed by this year. This could be a brand that sent you something broken and then wouldn't accept a return. This could be a brand that always ran out of things, that told you bought it and then canceled your order. Some either brand or beauty retailer that you have beef with. Didn't ask it last year. For me, it's always Sephora. They've given me trouble. They sent me something broken and they said, not broken us, so you're lying. But the more you buy from a place, it's like the more you drive a car, the more likely you are to get an fender bender, right? So, I shop a lot from Sephora, so I've had my issues. So you guys did say Sephora. But to me, the runners-up are the most interesting. The nearest runner-up was Pat McGrath Labs, of course. Infamously bad customer service. And it's like Tracy was saying, hi Tracy, one of our community members here, when she answered it, she's like, I keep buying from Pat McGrath. They keep disappointing me with their customer service, but I love the products. I keep buying from them. I shouldn't. I keep doing it. They keep disappointing me. I keep buying. And I think Tracy speaks for all of us, really. The same thing. I'm like, never again. And then I do it again. Yeah. So, we're our own worst enemy. But number 21 was most interesting to me for the number 2. So Sephora and Pat McGrath were kind of tied, and But I'll tell you what was most interesting to me for 21 was the second place, the runner-up. Do you know how many of you guys said Dior? I mean, I had oodles, 10s and 20s of answers of people saying Dior. Now, some of you qualified it. Some of you said because their releases are kind of stupid this year. Some of you said because it wasn't timely. Some of you just said Dior. So I don't know if you mean in store or online. I'm assuming online, but it was weird to me how much Dior came up. Now, go figure. People, and that to me was much more interesting than Sephora or Pat McGrath, which I could have predicted. And you can state below if you've had trouble with them, or if you listed Dior, because there's tons of you out there who did, and you didn't expand on it. Could you tell us why? It just, Dior kept coming. I was like, there's another Dior. I thought that was really interesting. Okay, before we go, I want to talk about the overall winner. For me, this is the brand that got the most mentions, even if they only got one mention in a category. So not just the ones who won the categories, although it tends to be the same, but even if they got one vote in the mascara category, it still counts. The most votes. Interestingly enough, I have 3 years worth of data on that. And this shows you the way the industry changes, I think. In 2021, Charlotte Tilbury got the most votes at the end of 2021. In 2022, Pat McGrath Labs got the most votes. This year, it was a tie between, I think you can guess, Natasha Denona and Chanel, so new winners. And this is how the industry is shifting. Natasha Denona and Chanel can join hands on the overall biggest winner. Definitely, Pat McGrath and Charlotte Tilbury, they didn't even appear that much. And like I said, Hourglass strangely never appears a lot, which is so surprising because people go insane when they release, especially their holiday palettes, and everyone loves them, but it's never anyone's favorite. But Natasha and Chanel, it's a different one each year. I find that so interesting. I think it's hard to keep a grip on the ever-changing beauty world. It's just like fashion. It just changes. So fascinating stuff. Let me know what your thoughts are. Did you forget to answer? And if you didn't get a chance to answer, did your answer agree with this? How many of you said something and were shocked to find that you were like-minded with so many other community members? I want to know. Let's just chat about it and have fun talking about the year review in beauty. It's such a pleasure to do this. Let me thank again all of you who have subscribed, all of you who have viewed my videos. I adore you guys. Obviously cannot do it without you, and I'm very community-centered, as you know, and plan to be no matter how big my channel grows, no matter how big. I'm looking forward to wonderful things in the new year. Thank you for being here. See y'all in the next video. Bye-bye.